Welcome to Empty Nesters True Crime Podcast, where we explore chilling mysteries and dark secrets. With their nest now empty, Susan and Nancy have more time to uncover the truth and venture into the unknown. Let's step into the shadows together, shall we?
Hey everybody, it's Nancy and Susan with Empty Nesters and True Crime. Welcome back.
Hey, how you doing, Nancy?
I'm good, Susan.
How's your week been?
Well,
okay. Nancy, we're going out Saturday. We're going to Oktoberfest.
oh, I'm excited.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I have a little German Oktoberfest kind of dress to wear. Nancy doesn't have one.
No, but my daughter at bingo last night was showing some of these German outfits, and some of them are cute. I think I might be able to come up with something.
All right. You come up with something.
I might be able to, like little shorts with the suspender things, right? If I can dig all that stuff out.
Yes. Yeah.
Cute.
Do it.
Now, is your dress from when you went to Germany?
I never went to Germany.
I thought you went to see Sydney.
COVID happened. We never made it.
Oh, you didn't get to go to when she was over there.
No.
Oh.
No, my little German dress is from Amazon.
Oh. When you were telling me, I thought, she must have had it in Germany. But you're right.
Yeah.
You didn't get to go over there.
Sydney and I have the same dress. She ordered one and I had ordered one and we ordered the same exact thing. So last year...
Did you know you had matching dresses? Or was it coincidental?
It was coincidental. Last year, was that the year it rained? It rained at Oktoberfest. I think it was last year.
Mm-hmm.
Or... I can't remember. But it's last year or the year before because she was here for 2 years. We went out to Oktoberfest. It was really raining. It's raining. I think it was last year. Not that matters. And we were twins.
Love it.
We were twinning.
You need to post a picture on our social media, Susan. That's cute.
German girls.
That is cute.
So it'll be fun. They have a lot of fun. What is it? Like a bratwurst contest, bratwurst eating contest.
I definitely won't be entering that.
Well, I won't be either. Food trucks.
It's a little small town thing. It'll be fun.
It's just a small town. And you get you a little stein and you get you some beer and get you a little food and walk. Different shops are open in our little downtown. It's fun time.
Run into people we know, I'm sure. So.
Always. And we'll have to tell them to listen to Empty Nesters and True Crime.
Yeah. So,
or I'm going to beat you with my stein of beer.
Okay, so we talk about our drink?
Yes.
Let's start with the drink because it is the Evil Doctor. This is just a twist on Dr. Pepper. All
I see is, what is it? What's his name? Mike Myers. Is that who is Dr. Evil? Is that
no, wrong one, Susan.
And then I just think of his little mini-me.
No, but it's just a twist on Dr. Pepper. Kind of makes it a cherry Dr. Pepper with the amaretto. It's got some vodka, but... That's good, right?
It's a cherry Dr. Pepper with a kick.
Yeah, I just wanted to use Dr. Pepper for our Dr. Evil. So, Susan, imagine being told you have cancer. Your world stops. Fear takes over. And your mind races through every worst-case scenario. But then, the doctor, a renowned specialist, tells you there's a plan. There's hope. You hang on to every word, trusting that this person will guide you through the most difficult fight of your life. But what if that trust was misplaced? What if the treatments you endured, the chemo, the pain, the suffering, were all for nothing? And worse, what if it was part of a scam? Today, we dive into the shocking case of a doctor who was trusted by thousands, but betrayed patients in the most unforgivable way.
Did they not have cancer at all?
Some did not. How did he get away with it? And how did so many people fall victim to one of the biggest medical frauds in U.S. history? We will be talking about Dr. Farid Fata. He was born 1965 in Lebanon. Dr. Fata earned his medical degree over there before moving to the U.S. in 1993. He then started practicing medicine in New York. He worked in medical centers in Brooklyn and Manhattan area. He then moved to Danville, PA, where he was an attending physician at the Geising Medical Center from 2000 to 2003. And then in 2003, he went out on his own and opened a hematology-oncology practice in Rochester Hills, Michigan. So now over the next 10 years, his practice grew. He opened 7 new locations throughout the metro Detroit area. He specializes in treating blood cancer. It wasn't just a regular oncologist. He owned his own lab, pharmacy, and even radiation treatment centers. His practice, they were going to treat about 17,000 patients across his multiple clinics. He built a reputation as one of the best cancer doctors in the Detroit, Michigan area, and people really trusted him. He was known for his aggressive approach to treatment, giving higher doses of chemo more frequently than other doctors usually did. He even named it. He called it his European protocol. To his patients, he seemed kind and caring and soft-spoken, but they would have no idea that Dr. Fata was actually scamming them. Many of the treatments he administered weren't needed at all. See, some, like we said, didn't even have cancer. He put hundreds of people through painful and sometimes dangerous treatments just to line his own pockets. Chemotherapy is incredibly harsh. It wipes out both cancerous but also your healthy cells, and it leaves patients with severe side effects. To think that Dr. Fata did this purely for his own financial gain, it's both disturbing and heartbreaking for the patients and their families. And Susan, this isn't just about misdiagnosing patients. Medical mistakes can happen, right? But, he did it just to exploit them. And he even falsified their records.
Did you do it for money?
Yep, all for money.
That's terrible.
For 6 years, from 2007 to 2013, he scammed Medicare and private insurance companies out of $34 million by prescribing chemotherapy to patients, again, who didn't have it, or some may have had it, but he just over-medicated. So in total, he deceived 553 people and did 9,000 treatments that weren't needed at all. These patients completely trusted him. Anyone who's been through cancer or knows someone who's gone through chemotherapy understands how brutal and painful it is. Also just the fear alone of being told you have something you could die from. And when treating cancer, sometimes, unfortunately, there comes a point where doctors know that the chemo is no longer working, or the patients, they're just too frail to continue. And that's when these patients are approached by hospice or comfort care because they know end of life is coming. They try to keep the patients comfortable so they can die in peace and with less pain. I shouldn't say approach, but referred to hospice, comfort care, palliative care. But guess what? Dr. Fata, he knew that this would mean he's going to lose money. So he just kept doing the treatments, even though he knew there was no longer hope, and he's not helping the patients, purely about greed. There was a nurse, Angela Swinetek, in the spring of 2010. She was a registered nurse, over 2 decades of nursing and oncology experience, and she was actually interviewing for a position at Dr. Fata's clinic. I think it was closer to her house, and she was, she did an interview, and then she was going to shadow a nurse to kind of get a feel of if this was right for her and to see how they do things. But what she saw, she said she was horrified. Patients were lined up, sitting chair to chair, side by side, receiving their treatments. There wasn't even an empty chair for a loved one to sit with them. It was all about how many patients he could get in there. There was even
Dr. Fata's a fraud. Dr. Fraud. Fraud Fata.
We should have named him Dr. Fraud.
Yeah.
They even told a story where they were administering chemo to someone out in their car. They said they did it to make him easier, but actually it was probably for space. They could do it out in the parking lot, out in the parking spaces.
Chemo to go.
Angela noticed one drug being administered through an IV drip that was supposed to be injected over a 5-minute period, real quick. but they had it in an IV bag through a drip. Then she saw another drug given the same day a patient received chemotherapy, even though protocol dictated it shouldn't be administered within 24 hours of chemo. Obviously, she was concerned, so she asked the nurse about it, but the answers just didn't add up. And she'd always just say, well, that's how Dr. Fata does it here.
Mm.
So not only did Angela turn down that job, but she also filed an official complaint with the state. I think this was April 14, 2010. And that's hard for a nurse to file a complaint on a doctor. She detailed the violations she had witnessed and stressed the need for an investigation, knowing Dr. Fata was doing more harm than good to these patients. However, a year later, she received a letter from the Department of Licensing and Regulatory Affairs stating that the investigation had been closed as they couldn't establish a violation. Wonder if he was really looked into that well. But everything started to fall apart when one of Dr. Fata's patients, Monica Flagg, she broke her leg. Monica had been referred to Dr. Fata for a follow-up just after regular routine blood work from her primary care, that they noticed some abnormalities in her routine blood work, so, just wanted to get it checked out. Dr. Fata told her she had a precancerous condition that could turn into full-blown cancer and insisted on the aggressive treatment style that he did. Monica endured multiple bone biopsies and months of immune boosters, the treatments for immune boosters, which required her to go into his office frequently and get hooked up to IVs. After about 8 months, Dr. Fata told her she now has full-blown cancer. She had a type of blood cancer, he tells her, and said she would need lifelong chemotherapy to stay alive.
Can you have lifelong chemotherapy?
I even wrote it how it's supposed to sound. Paul and I kept asking the thing. Okay, let's redo that whole thing. Sorry, Matt. Okay.
Matt's going to hate you.
I know. I'm not going to say it. Don't laugh because I'm looking at you. Okay, ready? He's not going to know where to cut this, but we're going to do that same line again. After about 8 months, Dr. Fata told her she now has full-blown cancer. He told her she had a type of blood cancer and said she would need lifelong chemotherapy to stay alive. Have you ever heard of lifelong chemotherapy?
No, I have not heard of lifelong chemotherapy because chemotherapy, it's like a poison to kill the cancer, isn't it? And it could kill you.
Yeah, but she's really a healthy person, so he probably just knows she could survive this. But here's the thing, what happened with her. After her first round, Monica went home, but she had an accident. She accidentally tripped over a suitcase she had laying out in a bedroom that, just from a recent trip, she hadn't put it away yet. And she ends up breaking her leg.
It's divine intervention.
It really was. So she goes to the hospital and she had surgery, but during this time, Dr. Fata, he happened to be on vacation. So Dr. Manglay, who worked under Dr. Fata, stepped in to see her. But Dr. Manglay had already had suspicions of Dr. Fata because he wasn't allowed to see certain patients of his. So that's what he did. When he had these patients that, he knew he was being a fraud about, he wouldn't let others see him.
Mm-hmm.
So he's suspicious. He reviews Monica's records, looks into her case. Guess what, Susan? She doesn't have cancer at all. Dr. Manglay told Monica she was healthy and should never go back to Dr. Fata. Dr. Manglay had seen other troubling things in Dr. Fata's practice. He noticed that Dr. Fata was giving chemo to patients who were far too frail to handle it and over-treating others without justification. Dr. Manglay didn't agree with the aggressive treatments, and after this, he knew now that what he was really doing, and he decided to resign. Before leaving, he talked to the office manager, George Kurchache, about his concerns. George had heard similar comments from other doctors, but had been skeptical. But after digging into things himself, George realized what was really going on. He filed a whistleblower suit. You know what that is, Susan? Kind of like an insider thing.
I've never heard of it.
Whistleblower suit, yep. And within weeks, the FBI got involved. The FBI uncovered the full extent of Dr. Fata's fraud, and he was arrested soon after that. Through the investigation, other cases would come to light, and patients started speaking out. I mean, some of these stories are so sad. Teddy Howard, he was 56, says Dr. Fata completely ruined his life. Fata told him he had a rare blood cancer, a disorder. He put him through 44 rounds of chemotherapy. But Teddy was shocked to learn he never had cancer at all. 18 months of chemo didn't just destroy his teeth, but also his liver. He had to get a liver transplant and surgery to replace all of his teeth. Everything fell apart.
Dr. Fata's liver.
Yep, he ends up losing his job because of all his treatments and being so sick. He lost his home. He now lives on disability and has to take medication daily when you have the liver transplant to make sure it doesn't reject it. Then there was a case like Sydney Zaramba's 87-year-old mother, Helen, passed away in 2011 while under Dr. Fata's care. Helen had non-Hodgkin lymphoma, but Sydney noticed her mother's health declining rapidly during Dr. Fata's treatments. It was later determined that Dr. Fata had overtreated her in the final stages of her life. So there was another one who did have cancer, but he just kept more and more chemo so he can bill, and get more money.
Is Dr. Fata married?
Yes, he is. And we'll talk about his wife in a little bit. But let's talk about a couple of more cases so we can get an idea of how bad he really is. Christopher Sneary. He did have cancer, but he was severely overtreated. Fata administered an intense regimen of 40 days of chemotherapy, 14 days of hydration, 3 iron infusions, 3 blood transfusions, 24 steroid injections, 37 radiation treatments, all for a case of testicular cancer that other doctors later said should have been relatively straightforward to treat. As a result of this extensive treatment, Christopher now suffers from neuropathy in his hands and feet, near failure of his kidneys, and compromised bladder, liver function. Additionally, he had to undergo unnecessary removal of a testicle. And I think the last one I want to talk about really quick, because this is a sad story too. Patty Hester, healthy yoga instructor. So Dr. Fata lied to her too, telling her she had cancer. But she said she didn't want to undergo chemotherapy, but she was going to do infusions. And when faced with this, she came to the term she was dying. She went through her bucket list, started giving stuff to family, giving possessions away. Her health did start to decline, but not because of the cancer he told her she had, but because of these infusions he was giving her. Obviously, it comes that he was lying about everything, but you know what? She now still suffers from organ damage because of it. So, and another thing I thought was interesting, he'd always tell his patients, like if they were going away or something, or anytime anything happened, don't go to urgent care. Don't, call me. And people looked at that as, well, he's a caring doctor. Mm-hmm. He's going to let me call you, he's going to take my calls personally. But there was a reason. He didn't want people to see these records. September 20th, 2014, he would plead guilty to 16 of the 23 charges, 13 counts of healthcare fraud. This would be providing patients with unnecessary treatment and then billing their health insurance providers, 1 count conspiracy, paying and receiving kickbacks, 2 counts of money laundering. The prosecution would seek a maximum sentence of 175 years in prison. Oh, you asked me about Dr. Fata's wife. Her name was Samar, and she was also very involved in the business. She was a CEO, CFO of his companies, and handling all the financials.
Think she knew?
Authorities think she knew, but they couldn't get her on anything. She got to move back to Lebanon with the kids. They've since been divorced, but there's limited public information on her. So yes, I do think she knew, but they really didn't have anything they could go after her on. So yeah, she's cleared of that. Take out the trash, Susan.
Take out the trash. That's what happened with Dr. Fata. He's talking.
It's Alexa. She sends a reminder so we don't forget to take out the trash. And I don't think it's out yet.
Oh, yeah, tomorrow's Friday.
Yeah.
Paul, take out the trash.
Take out the trash. And Dr. Fata, you got your trash and you got taken out.
Dr. Fata's sentencing hearing began on July 3rd, 2015. In court, about 24 of those former patients that we just spoke about, they stood in front of the court and told their stories. They talked about how he had stolen their health, their money, and their trust. They described the fear he instilled in them about dying and how the unnecessary chemotherapy treatments had devastated their bodies, leaving them with ongoing health issues. Some of these patients have filed a civil suit, hoping it will shed more light on the case, especially on why it took so long for anyone to realize what Dr. Fata was doing. But Dr. Fata did apologize.
Oh, that makes everything better.
He says, "The quest for power is self-destructive. They came to me seeking compassion and care. I failed. Yes, I failed." On July 10th, 2015, Dr. Fata was sentenced to 45 years in federal prison. His victims felt that this wasn't enough justice for all the harm he had caused. He would serve his time at a federal correctional institute in Williamsburg, South Carolina. His earliest possible release date was set for December 11th, 2050. But in May of 2018, Dr. Fata tried to get his guilty plea overturned. He argued that his legal team had given him bad advice, which led him to plead guilty in the first place. Even though he admitted his guilt during his sentencing, he's now claiming he has always been innocent. Essentially, he's trying to say the whole thing was a big mistake. 2020. What are we in now, Susan?
COVID.
Yep. Dr. Fata asked to be released from prison because of the COVID-19 pandemic, saying he had health conditions, including type 2 diabetes, and argued that at age 55, he was a high risk for severe illness from the virus. However, a federal judge denied his request for release, deciding that his health concerns didn't justify letting him out early. And we heard a lot about that during the pandemic, that people were trying to get out of jail, but
he wanted out like over 25 years early?
Oh, yeah.
No.
And so he's been in prison now 11 years, and even though his release date is set for 2050, he recently filed a motion asking for early release due to health problems again. Now he's claiming he has a rare blood disorder and says he'll die if he doesn't get out. Victims and their families were notified about the request, and he had until this past August 26th to submit their thoughts and opinions. So we'll have to keep an eye on this, Susan, to see if he gets granted his early release. But it surprised me that Dr. Fata was never charged with crimes directly related to the harm he caused his patients, like murder or attempted murder. But I guess proving intent to kill can be challenging, so the prosecution likely focused on the broader pattern of fraud and medical malpractice, which was easier to prove. Dr. Fata's goals, they know, was to actually keep their patients coming back for treatment so he could continue making money. I mean, he wasn't necessarily trying to kill them, but that really...
He was just money hungry.
Yeah, so he just got fraud.
And if they died along the way, oh well.
Well, yeah.
Susan does not like Dr. Fata.
But, let this case be a reminder of just how vulnerable patients can be and why there's such a need for stricter oversight in healthcare. Dr. Fata's actions didn't just betray his patients, they also exposed some serious flaws in how medical practices are monitored. Remember what I said about him owning his own lab, pharmacy, and radiation treatment center, which gave him full control over everything from diagnosis to treatment. No checks and balances. He even went as far as fabricating studies, completely destroying people's faith in the healthcare system. And when we listen to the stories of the patients he wronged, it should remind us all that we can't just blindly trust our healthcare providers, unfortunately. We need to be our own advocates, ask questions, get second opinions, and never be afraid to push back if something doesn't feel right. Trust is important, but your health is too valuable to hand over without making sure you're getting the right care.
I'm Googling Dr. Fata. I want to see what it looks like.
Yeah, I mean, and then there were, one of the patients said when she was in his waiting office, they just kept showing this video of him over and over and over. And that was his thing. And
he's ugly.
I don't think he's ugly, but he was very...
He's old. He's old looking.
But people trusted him. He was so soft-spoken.
I could see trust in him, yeah.
He made it sound like he cared. But what I say about, really trusting your instincts, because the lady that we said that was the yoga instructor, she's in great health. Some of these people, it was so hard to believe, like, I'm not sick. And he's telling them, they pretty much have a death sentence. But, and I know at first some people with cancer don't always feel sick. I get that. But some of it just came, just out of left field, or, you're there for checking something routine, and now...
his wife's very pretty. She's beautiful.
She isn't she?
But, yeah. So I know she married him for his money.
I mean...
Come on.
But do you think she knew about all this, being the CEO and doing the finances? And
in my opinion, yes, she knew. Look at this house.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Y'all just wait.
Wait till you see it. I mean,
because
look, $34 million that he conned the insurance companies out of. Where do you think all that came from?
Yeah, because we've been posting pictures about the weekly story. So whatever story we do for the week, I post.
Susan works very hard on this. We appreciate it.
About the story. And then we put them in the highlights. So if you miss the story that day, you can still go back into the highlights and you can click and it'll be there, kind of the different pictures for the story. This was the second week I've done it. So, but it does, it brings the story closer to, you can visualize it.
Yeah, I like your picture, Susan. But yeah, make sure you post his house. Now, I was concerned about this because that nurse, when she came for the interview, she knew right away that we'll say the jig was up. Like, she saw things and she was talking about, like, there were not licensed nurses putting the IV bags on. She's like, well, wait a second, that's normally done by this. But see, they're just trying to get stuff done so quickly. And how they were, like, disposing of stuff. Again, she's like, that's not how it would be done. But what about all the people working for him all those years and seeing... I'm not blaming anybody. I'm not blaming anybody. He's the doctor. He's calling the shots. It's his practice. But I'm just surprised nothing else came out sooner.
Yeah, what were they being paid? Were they being paid more than they could go somewhere else to work?
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah. Or, some people are just bad employees and they don't care if you take shortcuts or do something a different way. Or
yeah. I heard about chemo getting administrator in the parking lot. Who would even think that's... But there was a lot of things, if you read through, that they did. But again, I'm not blaming anybody. Please don't. I mean, she would just say, well, this is how Dr. Fata does it. This is how we do it here. And it was funny because when the nurse gave her interview about interviewing for the position, she just said it was like for an hour, they went back and forth, almost like the two of them were disputing it. But I thought, I'm surprised no one else had all that time.
And maybe they did.
Well, thank you all for joining us again.
Yes, thank you. And subscribe to our channel. We would greatly appreciate it.
Yeah, and be sure to follow Susan's social media and see the pictures from our episodes. I think
that's been interesting to do.
I've enjoyed watching them.
It's kind of like, and then you can go back in the highlights and you can really see the whole, it saves it. So it's there and it's going to stay there, which is good because there might be a story for new listeners. They can go back and be like, I really want to see that. I listened to this story. I want to see put faces to names.
Oh, that's what I like.
Faces to names.
Yeah. And this one, we're going to keep following to see if he gets granted his early release. But
no.
Yeah.
No. Because you know what he's going to do? He's just going to go back to Lebanon.
I was going to say he's going to leave the country. Yeah.
But he's not married. He doesn't have a pretty wife anymore.
Do you wonder what makes somebody get to this point? I mean, he probably started off as a great doctor, and then greed takes over, and we're just going to...
It's greed, lifestyle. I just listened to a podcast from, I think it was 2020 about the Real Housewives.
Mm-hmm.
of Beverly Hills. There's one of them on there who her husband was quite a bit older than her, an attorney. I just can't remember the names off the top of my head. And he's in prison because he would win these big lawsuits, like when the plane went down in Indonesia, I believe it was, and they get these settlements, and he would be keeping this client's settlement money and like doing different things with it. Well, they had a lifestyle.
Give that lifestyle up.
And even though he was a lawyer and you could live a very comfortable lifestyle, it just wasn't enough.
More and more.
It was like when it came to parties, it'd be nothing to spend $40,000, $100,000 on a party. Oof, on a damn party. I can't imagine.
Yeah, I think this case was hard, I think, because if you've known anybody gone through cancer, or, had a family member, a friend, or maybe yourself, they were saying, like, they were sitting there getting treatments, and there was a gentleman in a wheelchair, like, literally hunched over, that they're still giving, and they, like, the lady's like, I had to call somebody over, like, is he dead? Like, he, literally looked like he was dead in the wheelchair. And we're still pumping chemo.
And he is a murderer because, in my opinion, because those people that he jacked up with chemo all through their body, are they going to live as long as they would have before that?
Right.
You stole time from them.
And
their time of their life.
Yeah, and they have permanent damage from the treatments they didn't need in the first place.
Yeah. Shame on you, Dr. Fata.
But it's also a reminder that a second opinion is never a bad idea.
Right.
I'm not saying don't trust your doctors. That's not what I'm saying, but
well, I think even I trust my doctor, but if he came and said, "Susan, you got this," and it was a big major thing, health condition, I would want a second opinion.
Right.
I think that's important.
Right.
Because doctors are still humans, and humans can make mistakes.
And we all hear these stories, I mean, even a reputable doctor, it's like, oh, they were going to do it this way. But then somebody's like, well, I went here and they did it this way. And it was much easier, less painful, not as invasive. So, it's always good to get a second opinion. This is the perfect example of, something doesn't feel right, ask questions. Even with your doctor that you trust, always ask questions.
Yeah. Now, my poor doctor is going to get asked 1,000 questions, and he's going to be like, usually I can get in and out with her in less than 5 minutes. And why she got me in here?
Here's Nancy saying, ask 20 questions.
Like,
but now
Nancy said I need to ask you this.
We're just, again.
What is this bump right here? It was to feel like, get the hell out of my office and go see a dermatologist.
Well, anyways, thank y'all again for listening, and
y'all have a great week. We will see you next time.
All right.
Well, you'll listen to us next time. Whatever. We'll see you next time.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Have a good night. Bye.
Did you hear of that one before? Did you know it?
No, I did not know that
trying to get out of jail. Yeah, I've known this story for a long time, but then I just saw that he's trying to get out of jail. I'm like, no, why does he need to get out of jail? Because he's dying in jail.
Thanks for joining us on Empty Nesters True Crime Podcast, where we've delved into chilling mysteries and dark secrets. With their nest now empty, Susan and Nancy will keep uncovering the truth and venturing into the unknown. Until next time, stay safe and step into the shadows with us again.